My dream was always to get my own place. Ever since I was in high school, I couldn't wait to move out. I hated living at home. My dad was an angry drunk on weekends, my mom wasn't much better, and we constantly clashed. As I got older, it became even worse, especially once girls became a part of my life. There was no way I was bringing anyone back to that house. So the first chance I got, I took it. I moved out at 19 while I was in college. I didn't go far. I attended a commuter college not far from home because my parents wouldn't help pay for me to live on campus. That meant I was constantly scrolling through Zillow, Facebook Marketplace, and Craigslist looking for something cheap. Eventually, I found a small apartment that looked promising and affordable, so I went to see it immediately. The layout mattered to me. When you walked in, you entered a combined living room and dining area as one open space. The kitchen was adjacent, separated by a wall. To reach the bedroom, you had to walk down a hallway with 2 closets along the way. I used one as a pantry and the other for storage. The bathroom door was also off this hallway, and at the very end was the bedroom. The bedroom itself was surprisingly spacious. It easily fit a queen-sized bed, 2 dressers, and a TV, and it also had 2 more closets. For the price, it felt like a steal, so I was sold instantly. I moved in the following month, and for a while, life was great. A few months later, I went out drinking with friends in town. We ran into some girls we knew, and I ended up bringing one of them back to my apartment. I'll call her Sammy. We'd known each other through school, but had never hung out like that before. We drank at my place and started watching a movie. Nothing crazy happened. She didn't want to take things further, and I respected that. Eventually, we moved the movie into the bedroom, and somewhere in the middle of it, we both passed out from drinking. The next thing I remember is waking up to the sound of footsteps in the hallway. It was still the middle of the night. I looked beside me and realized I was alone in bed. I jumped up and looked down the hallway and saw Sammy in the living room quietly grabbing her things from the couch. She was clearly trying to leave without waking me to avoid the awkward morning conversation. I understood, so I didn't say anything. I quietly got back into bed and listened as she walked out the front door. Just to be sure, I softly called her name once, but there was no response, confirming she was gone. I settled back into bed and fell asleep again pretty quickly. About an hour later, I woke up to a loud noise. I immediately froze in bed and my heart started racing. I called out Sammy's name again, even though I knew she was gone. There was no response. I was terrified to get up and check, so I grabbed my phone and texted Sammy, asking if she was somehow still in my apartment. I knew it was strange, but I was genuinely scared. My bedroom door was still open because I'd been too lazy to close it after she left. I was still slightly drunk, but I swear I saw something wrapped around the doorframe. My breathing became fast and shallow. I still can't believe I did this, but I swiped down on my phone and turned on the flashlight while keeping it pointed at the doorframe. That's when I saw 2 hands wrapped tightly around the edge of the doorframe. The moment the light hit them, the fingers tightened, and whoever it was instantly pulled their hands out of sight. The scream I'd been holding in finally burst out of me. I started screaming in pure panic, yelling for whoever it was to get out over and over. I jumped out of bed and looked down the hallway. It was empty. I flipped on the hallway light immediately. After a few minutes of trying to calm my breathing and listening for sounds, I built up the courage to check the closets and bathroom, but they were empty. I moved into the living area next and checked behind the couch, under the tables, and even inside the lower kitchen cabinets. The apartment was completely empty. The strange part was that I'd never heard the front door open or close. I ran to the door and locked it. Shaking, I called Sammy until she finally answered. She sounded tired and confused. I asked her if she had just been in my apartment, and she told me she left a while ago because she couldn't sleep. I didn't explain anything, just told her never mind and hung up. Next, I spam called my best friend until he picked up. He was half asleep, but I explained everything. He told me I was probably still drunk and sleep deprived, and that I had experienced a waking hallucination. It made some sense, especially since I never heard the door shut. I eventually laughed it off, apologized for waking him, locked my bedroom door, and somehow fell asleep. The next morning, I searched the apartment again and found nothing. But later that day, something bothered me. I went back to my bedroom and examined the door frame, and my heart dropped. There were clear fingerprints on the door frame exactly where I had seen the hands the night before. That's when I realized it hadn't been a hallucination. Even took a picture, which I still have saved years later. I ended up calling my dad for advice. He called me an idiot for not locking the door, but admitted I was lucky nothing was stolen and no one was still inside. He was right. I never found out who broke into my apartment or why they chose to do the creepiest possible thing instead of stealing something. When my lease ended a year later, I moved out and upgraded apartments, and I never looked back. My parents' house never really felt like a normal parent's house. My dad traveled constantly for work, and my mom was always out with friends, staying at my aunt's house or coming home late. It wasn't neglect exactly, just absence. From the time I was about 16, I basically lived alone. I ate dinner alone, watched TV alone, and sometimes spent entire weekends by myself. I was an only child, and growing up like that eventually stopped feeling normal. At 19, while going to a nearby college, nothing changed. If anything, my parents were gone even more. Knew every sound that house made, which matters. It was an older house with character, and none of the usual creaks scared me. One night I knew for a fact I would be alone. My dad was out of town for work, and my mom told me she'd be staying at my aunt's place. I didn't care. That was normal. I made food, watched TV, and around 11 p.m., went upstairs to my room at the end of the hallway. My door was open like my parents preferred, partly for safety, but also because I liked hearing the house. Lay in bed watching YouTube and scrolling on my phone. About an hour later, my phone rang. It was a no-caller ID call. I ignored it at first, but when it rang again immediately, I answered. At first there was silence, then I heard faint TV audio. My stomach tightened because my TV was still on downstairs at low volume. What made it worse was that the audio on the phone perfectly matched my TV in real time. It wasn't delayed. It was synced. The only explanation was that whoever was on the phone was inside my house. I tried to convince myself it was a glitch or someone messing with me from outside, but the longer I listened, the less sense that made. I walked to my bedroom door and listened, and that confirmed it. Okay, in hindsight, this was stupid, but I yelled, "Who's down there?" The call immediately ended. I tried calling my dad, but he didn't answer. Then I called my uncle, who lived nearby. While I was explaining everything to him, my phone started vibrating again. No caller ID. I begged my uncle to stay on the line and picked up the other call. This time, there was no TV sound, but I could hear footsteps through the phone, and at the same time, I heard footsteps outside my bedroom door. The sounds matched. Then my doorknob started to jiggle. Whoever it was tried to push the door. Thank God the lock held. I merged the calls and yelled for my uncle to come now. Hearing another voice must have scared the person because they hung up, and the footsteps moved away. My uncle arrived minutes later and searched the house with me while calling the police. The TV was still on downstairs, and the kitchen window was wide open. The police searched the house but found no one. A few days later, they traced the no-caller ID calls back to someone I knew from high school. He claimed his phone had been stolen days earlier. There was no arrest and no clear answers. To this day, I don't know whether he was lying or if someone else used his phone. But the idea that someone was inside my house watching and calling me still terrifies me more than anything else that's ever happened to me.